A Villain in Venice, Jane of the Air, Book 1. A steampunk detective and aviatrix and part-time spy. Available now. All profits to the NHS.
Scanning for audio.
Welcome to a Tin Dog podcast. This time talking about main or monthly range release number 270, Shadow of the Daleks Volume 2. So this one combined with the last one produces 8 really good stories, or one really good story, because they all fit together but they all are separate. Arguably this is the closest Doctor Who's ever come to being, The Prisoner. You've got an overarching storyline that doesn't really make sense unless you see everything really close or really far away. Here we go. Something is very wrong. The Fifth Doctor, lost in the Time War, heading for an encounter with his oldest and deadliest enemies, the Daleks. Now, so here we've got, just like last time, 4 more individual stories. Now, obviously, the last story is going to be the one with the payoff. It's going to be the one that apparently brings everything together. But of course, these stories, especially last times, are so incredibly desperate and different from each other that you sort of sit there and going, what is going on if you try and imagine the overall story together? Individually, the stories are superb. But when it comes to the last one, you go, oh, I get it now. Which is exactly what they're aiming for. So, story number 1 is Echo Chamber by Jonathan Barnes. It's the talk show where everyone's free to call in with their opinions. Time to welcome its hosts, the Doctor. Now, this first story has got some very, very quotable moments. Stuff that you actually want to lift as a podcaster and put into your own show. With the Fifth Doctor asking if anybody's still listening and that kind of thing. Gloriously sampleable. But the storyline itself is, it kind of feels a lot like the Ninth Doctor story set on the space station. Well, moments of it. But then it's more about passion and about people arguing, so it's kind of about, the internet. And once you get to the point where you're saying, oh, it's a bit like this and it's a bit like this, it reaches a sort of critical mass where you go, actually, it's its own thing. It's not like such and such or this or that or that. Because when something's like about 5 different things at once, it becomes its own entity in itself. And that's something I think as fans we really should remember a lot more of. So that's Echo Chamber. I don't really want to go into any more depth than that, other than to say it's terribly enjoyable. Towards Zero by Roland Moore. The Doctor finds himself in an old country house where he has solved a very unusual murder, his own. Yeah, we're back to Sapphire and Steel territory, time looping in on itself, and it all working out tremendously well. The synopsis says it all, and if I'm to say any more than that, I will be giving out spoilers, and I really don't think you deserve that with this one, because it does work. It's a great little bit of narrative. And it's helping to build the ongoing storyline as well. Castle Hydra by Liz Hopley. Well, nearing the end of his journey, the Doctor enters a jail filled with familiar faces. But who are the prisoners and who are the wardens? Again, this is now so close to the end and is adding extra layers of mystery and characterization and getting the best out of all of the actors' performances. You have to remember, there's only, 4 other people in this, and they're in 8 different episodes and 8 different mini stories, and they're all playing different characters each time. If you were going to be looking for some sort of award-winning thing, this would definitely be it. And of course, finally, effect and caused by John Dorney. A crash in the vortex lands the Doctor to the source of all his troubles, and to the Daleks. The answers are here, if he can live long enough to find them. Now, this is, of course, a great way of sorting everything out. By the time you've reached this point, you're going, right, what is going on? And when you finally find out what is going on, you go, right, I get it now. Why didn't I see that one in the first place? And yes, you might see that one coming, just like The Sixth Sense or Last Christmas or whatever, but you might not. And I didn't. And when I think back on it, it was so obvious what was going on and that it couldn't possibly have been anything else. And yet I still fail to see it because I was so deeply entrenched in the storyline and what was going on that I couldn't see the wood for the trees. And that is a testimony to some great writing across the board. Here's the trailer, and decide for yourself, but as far as I'm concerned, if you're even toying with the idea of this, just buy it. So, I'll be back later with probably me talking about Doctor Who. So until next time, be seeing you.
From Big Finish Productions, Doctor Who, Shadow of the Daleks, Volume 2.
What are you doing in my laboratory? Now, come on. There's no need for that.
There he is. Look. My darling son.
Oh, he really is dead.
Did you think it was a joke of some sort?
It wouldn't have surprised me. You know how he likes to be the centre of attention.
Now, I need to find out what I meant to each of you in order to determine the identity of the murderer.
You mean you plan to solve your own murder?
Exactly.
What in the name of...
You can step in and help at any time, by the way. It's been a while since I used a broadsword. Oh, look at that. I'm better than I remember.
You're saying this is a little more complicated than just a crash?
Yes. You see, this isn't the first time we've met. I've recently encountered several people who look like you, over and over again, spread out across the whole history of time and space.
That's amazing, but weird.
Perhaps. I think there's more to it than that.
What's worrying you so much?
Something called a Dalek.
Stay where you are!
All right, we're not going anywhere.
What are they? Can't you guess? Surely the voice is a clue.
Robots.
No, mutations. There's organic life inside those shells, not that you'd notice.
Even if they're as violent as you say, they can't be that much of a threat.
You'd be surprised.
Obey or you will be exterminated!
The shields are holding for now. I'll boost them as much as possible.
Lock the doors.
Well, somebody didn't pay their electricity bill.
It's still rebooting. Low on power.
Whatever the Daleks are up to, it's the cause of all this, I'm sure of it.
And speaking of Daleks, that's the door locked. We can't get in.
Status report! Time Lord and 3 unknown humanoids located. Destroy the Time Lord and the humanoids! Exterminate! Exterminate the Time Lord!
Right. So, I think the idea is that I'm supposed to just get on with it now. Apologies, then, to those of you who are still listening. I suppose there are some of you out there listening. It's really rather hard to tell from here.
Big Finish. We love stories.
That was the Tin Dog Podcast. Available on Spotify, iTunes, Acast, Stitcher, and wherever good podcasts are found. Get early access to content by subscribing to the Tin Dog Podcast YouTube channel. You can support the show at patreon.com/tindog. Contact the show on Twitter at tindogpodcast or email tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk. All of the things discussed are the intellectual property of others. No infringement is intended. The Tin Dog Podcast is a founder member of the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance.